Hi everyone, it's me, the anti-black Barbie, the all-watchful eye of anti-blackness. So I kind of want to come online and have a discussion with you all about a few things that I've been noticing have been circulating the timeline. A great story to start with is the Nico's Aesthetics and the Elijah Zayne debacle. So if you're not exactly sure who Nico's Aesthetics is, he is a popular YouTuber and OnlyFans model. I ended up doing a video on him a few months ago, which was called The Lying Game. If you haven't had the opportunity to watch it, which you should, the basis of the video is me highlighting Nico being a pathological liar and him having a pattern of using his platform to either silence, discredit, or attack victims who decide to come forward about situations that may have ended up happening to them. So I'm sure you're wondering what led up to me making this video. So several months ago, Raheem Shabazz and his boyfriend Elijah Zayne decided that they were going to be going their separate ways, which led to a lot of people speculating as to why. Now, Elijah did come online here and there speculating that he was going to share his story, which led a lot of people to believe that their relationship wasn't exactly what it seemed. So fast forward a few months later, Elijah finally decides to come out and share his story. At some point within the interview, Elijah decides to share an altercation that ended up happening between Raheem and one of his other friends.
Me and a certain YouTuber,
Nico.
YouTuber, was walking out. Ty was a little bit too tipsy to get into the club, I think, because by that point I'm already gone. I'm not comprehending the stuff that's happening in front of me. We walk outside. I see Ty Santana fighting. I just remember running over there, breaking it up. And like the fight got broke up. I feel like I'm just spilling way too much, child. You being messy. You being messy as hell. I broke the fight up. I broke the fight up.
Tell how you want to tell it.
I broke the fight up, and that's all I remember. And then the next thing I remember is being in an Uber with my partner at the time, and there was tension, and that escalated more.
Within him sharing the story, he doesn't bring up Nico's name. He doesn't implicate him doing anything negative. He merely brings up the fact that Nico was present within this story, and that was enough for Nico to crash the fuck out.
I wasn't there for 95% of their fucking relationship, but I will tell you what I was there for. And it was that bitch being crazy. I'm done with this. Don't involve me in shit. Bitch, if you open your mouth about me again, even the YouTuber. Bitch, if you try it again, I'm really gonna take it there because you know.
I actually ended up watching the interview revolving Elijah and Deep Dick, and I cannot for the life of me understand Nico's reaction. I could understand him being upset if he named him specifically, or maybe he decided to air out some of his dirt, but none of that happened. So it's posing the question to me, why is Nico so upset? And the only thing that I can think of is that Nico has designated himself to be Raheem's personal attack dog. And while I'm generally being condescending, I think that a lot of people underestimate how much importance people like Nico's Aesthetics put on being a part of the in crowd or the popular club. And while I never want to seem like I'm making excuses for Nico, I can't omit the fact that I have followed him for an extremely long time and understand that a large part of his early life was one met with a lot of loneliness. If you're not someone who is considered conventionally attractive, you're constantly being forgotten about, you're constantly being excluded, you're constantly being singled out. And these poor experiences tend to have people in their later lives seeking out a certain level of validation that they normally would have gotten out of their system when they were younger. But now we're seeing Nico live out his popular high school fantasy vicariously through his YouTube or through Raheem's harem. Because while Nico was doing really well on YouTube, it's clear that his platform has grown exponentially because he's been endorsed by someone like Raheem. And in the grand scheme of all of this, Raheem Shabazz would be the equivalent of someone like a Regina George in Nico's aesthetics mind. You can look back to some of Nico's older videos to see that he's always had a fixation on this person. Raheem's connections and notoriety is something that he has and always wanted. So when you have someone like Elijah Zayne coming online and essentially tarnishing the person you idolize's name, it comes to no surprise that he's going to be feeling a certain type of way. And at first, I was genuinely confused as to why he's so insistent on being connected to someone such as Raheem. But in his video, he makes it very clear. If something doesn't personally affect him, then he's simply not interested. And I simply cannot respect people like this. Why does something have to happen to you in order for you to see the importance and severity of certain situations? And Nico wasn't just upset, he was airing out this person's business. And I'm a firm believer that if you're an ass kisser when we're friends, then you need to be an ass kisser when we have a falling out. Don't wait until we're no longer friends to air out your grievances, because at that point, I'm no longer interested. And he has the audacity to sit on here and try and call someone fake. You didn't have a problem with him being broke and crazy then, so why do you have a problem with him being broke and crazy now? But I think what's alarming me the most is the way that he's framing this conversation. There is absolutely no context within his critique, and I don't know if it's intentional or if he's just completely oblivious to everything that's actually going on around him. At no point within the video does he mention that Elijah was in a relationship with someone 14 years older than him. At no point within the video does he explain that Raheem has astronomically more resources and more notoriety. And at no point does he mention that Raheem transported this person over a multitude of different states where he's been completely isolated from his friends, family, and support system.
The first year was bliss. I will say that. Keep in mind, young 20s, naive, stupid. Right. But then, like, I started to see stuff, and, like, literally the last 2 years up until now, I realized, like, I've been in a depression, and that, like, even clicking it. Like, I started to, like, change, because, like I said, when I moved out here, I feel like I was, like, just lively, blase, blase. Now I'm just like, what am I? So, yeah, like, I feel like the depression kind of, like, I don't know.
Did it ever get, like, physical with you? Like, did he ever, like...
It got all the abuse you could think of. Mental, physical, emotional, narcissistic abuse. Just everything. Literally everything. And like I said, it was... I don't know. I was naive. Also alone out here. Like I said, I just met the... shout out to Ty Santana, Swirly, Siren, Santiago. Like...
It's very clear that in the beginning of their relationship, there was a very large power imbalance that Nico just does not seem to want to acknowledge. And while Elijah is 30 years old now, from what I'm understanding about the timeline of events, he started talking to Raheem around the time of being 23 or 24. So this is somebody who is very young and very impressionable, interacting with a very seasoned older man. And while I find Nico's behavior generally deplorable, most of the blame in this story is typically going to be placed on Raheem. If you ask me, this is a very irresponsible person. Rather than using his money, his resources, and his fame to improve the quality of our community, we're seeing him use his privilege and his access to exploit. I also just think that Nico's behavior in this video is very contradictory. How do you go from saying that you only have seen 5% of these people's relationships to knowing almost every single detail about their finances and the ins and out of their relationship? And the more these situations happen with him, the more I start to question how I tolerated someone as despicable as this. And I think that his ability to always blame the victim is just really sad to me. Because I'm just wondering, do you have any level of compassion in your heart? It's like you sat there and saw a video of someone that you have hung out with frequently talking about being abused mentally, physically, emotionally, and you decided that this was the perfect opportunity to sick your audience on them and try and assassinate their character. And if he's able to do this to someone that he used to call a friend, I think it makes complete sense as to why he frequently comes online and does this to strangers. If I could give Elijah one message, this is not your friend, this is an opportunist. The only thing that he cares about is what he can get out of these things himself. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I feel like the situation has a lot of parallels to August Alsina and Zoo, which I also did a video on. And it's just hard for me not to notice the pattern of older Black men using their resources, their time, their exposure to pick off some random racially ambiguous or multiracial person off the side of the street and doing everything they can to make them the next best thing. And scenarios like this actually feel like validation when it comes to the August Alsina and Zoo situation. A lot of people were in my comment section saying that I'm just jealous, I don't know what I'm talking about, large age gaps are perfectly normal. Elijah even confirms that a lot of his friends, family, associates tried to get him away from Raheem. And because he thought he was grown, he decided he was going to learn the hard way. And to the younger people who follow me, I'm not saying this because I don't want you to find anyone. I'm saying this because I don't want you shacked up with some weirdo who doesn't have good intentions for you. But if you all are insistent with being with someone 15 plus years older than you, then I can't stop you, but I want better for you. Anyways, let's move on to the next one. One story in particular that's really captured my attention is the Hugo and Khaled debacle. I've actually been wanting to discuss these two for quite some time, but I've never really had the opportunity because it was so long ago. But the main reason why I'm bringing it up is that the conversation has resurfaced because he decided he was going to address the issue on Keke Palmer's talk show. So if you're not familiar with these two, I'll go ahead and give you a general synopsis. Hugo, who is a popular social media figure, went viral last year because he decided he was going to expose the sexuality of a popular R&B artist by the name of Khalid. The two had a very short and tumultuous relationship. Ultimately, it ended because Khalid accused Hugo of stealing a large sum of money from him, in which he still to this day denies. A lot of people generally focus their attention on the fact that Khalid was outed. I, however, at the time thought that this was a great moment to have a conversation around desirability and how it shows up and informs these people's dynamics in their relationships. One tweet that I made that still resonates with how I feel today on November 24th of 2024 was, most of the time when you see these dynamics, the relationship is typically transactional. Oftentimes, the non-Black person trades their proximity to whiteness for resources. Very rarely do they ever like the person that they are dating. And I remember after making this tweet, a lot of people were committed to misunderstanding what I was trying to say. One person in particular by the name of You Can Call Me Sis says, I've been watching this unfold over the week, and I really hate that everyone's just okay with accepting the belief that darker skinned plus size people are simply not attractive or deserving of being with someone just as beautiful as they are. It hurts my heart. And I want to go ahead and clarify one or two things. I'm not saying that I don't think that Denzel or Khalid are beautiful or deserving of partners or that they don't have a lot to offer. What I am saying is that they don't exist outside of colorism, anti-blackness, fat phobia, and a variety of different Eurocentric beauty standards. And all of this boils down to probability. It's not that it won't happen, it's that it's unlikely to happen. And while I love the idea of Hugo and Denzel or Hugo and Khalid being a power couple and defying all odds, in my experience, it very rarely ends up that way. I think in general, it's irresponsible to give dating advice that removes the element of Eurocentric beauty standards, because ultimately these things are at the forefront of people's minds when it comes to choosing a suitable partner, and we only end up setting people up for failure. And of course, there are going to be some outliers who don't care about people's looks, but Hugo in this scenario has proven that he is not one of them. Shortly after exposing Khalid on the timeline, Hugo comes online and elaborates by saying, I was dating this dumbass singer. He's ugly as fuck and tried to set me up and say that I tried to lie and broke into his house. Now, while I'm really not interested in the he said, she said aspect around him stealing, I think that him coming online and immediately calling Khalid ugly really emphasizes what I'm saying about these dynamics. He wasn't attracted to Khalid, he was attracted to what he could get out of the situation. And a lot of non-black people like Hugo operate like predators. They'll attach themselves to black guy after black guy after black guy until they finally find one that has low racial self-esteem and an intense need for white validation. And in the Keke Palmer interview, Khalid ends up confirming this, that he was essentially at a very low point in his life. He didn't really like what he was looking at in the mirror. He didn't really have any confidence in himself. And it was easy for Hugo to sweep in and capitalize off of this. I want to caution people from going too hard on Khalid's behalf because I don't know if he's learned his lesson. What I do know is that he, like a lot of black men who gain access to wealth and notoriety, goes immediately to funneling his resources and wealth into the pockets of a non-black person. And if you were to ask me, I think that both of them haven't really been forthcoming about the real dynamic of their relationship. Khalid has come online and said that he's never had to pay for anything, but I just do not find that realistic. At the very least, I have to believe that he was funding Hugo's lifestyle to some extent. No one is going to convince me that Hugo would agree to this without getting some kind of monetary value out of it. And I think that it's easy to infantilize Khalid and his role that he played in the situation because he is somebody who is marginalized. But I think that we have to be careful when it comes to coddling people who play into anti-fat, anti-black, colorist ideologies. And while I don't have access to his entire dating history, I don't need to. It's very uncommon to see someone who goes after a person like Hugo not making a habit out of it. And it would come to no surprise to me if he ended up popping out with somebody who was identical to Hugo. In my experience, I have noticed that a lot of chronic swirlers have this unique ability to compartmentalize very racist scenarios rather than interpreting them as a systemic issue. And I just find that really interesting because I feel like a lot of chronic swirlers do the exact opposite when it comes to black people. If someone black does something wrong in a relationship, we are all casted with a wide sweeping brush. But when someone white does something racist, all of a sudden one individual is no longer a reflection of an entire group. And I don't know if this applies to Khalid. I'm just more so making a general statement. A big part of why I'm bringing this up though is that I've noticed an uptick in black queer people who have made it their mission to go back and forth with Hugo every single time he antagonizes Khalid. And I really want to reiterate that this is not our fight. This fight is for the people who Khalid has decided is worth his time, worth his resources, worth his notoriety. Those should be the ones in Hugo's comment section going back and forth with him every single time he chooses to antagonize Khalid. I think we send a very dangerous message when we come online and play Captain Save-A-Ho for people who do not find value in people who look like us. And I have the same mentality when it comes to Lil Nas X. Your body, your choice, but that doesn't mean that you're entitled to our advocacy. Simply being black is not enough for me to defend somebody anymore. I need to understand what type of black person you are before you receive any level of support from me. And ultimately, it all boils down to a lack of racial self-esteem. If someone doesn't like what they see when they look in the mirror, then they're highly unlikely to choose a partner that reflects that for the rest of their lives. While I was making this tweet last year, I included a picture of Hugo's last relationship with Denzel Dion because I felt like it was very relevant to what was happening with Khalid. Now, while I only have one or two examples, this is enough for me to understand that this isn't a coincidence, it's a pattern. From my perspective, it looks like Hugo attaches himself to plus size, darker skinned, conventionally unattractive people in order to propel himself further in his career. And I was open to the idea that maybe he just isn't a shallow person, but the fact that he immediately went on to call Khalid ugly, it's just confirmation to me that he's not in these dynamics for the right reason. And again, I understand that not everybody gets into relationships with people because of their looks, but if it doesn't matter, why bring it up? On another note, I think that the real point of contention is that Ugo was seeing that Khalid was achieving a certain level of success, and he wanted to be attached to somebody who could propel his music career. He probably was feeling a certain type of way about one of Khalid's accomplishments that he saw online, and probably got set over the edge. Because when you compare their numbers on Spotify, Khalid averages around 50 million listeners a month, whereas Ugo only averages around 500. Now, if I had a platform of 266,000 people and only 500 could tune in to listen to my music, I would probably be feeling a certain type of way as well. It's probably hard for someone like Ugo to rationalize why someone like Khalid, who he thinks is beneath him, is doing better than him. He's so used to resting in his mediocrity and being rewarded for it that when it's time to deliver quality and substance, he ends up falling flat. And the reality of the situation is that if his pants aren't down or his shirt isn't off, they simply aren't interested. And while I find his predatory behavior deplorable, I think what I find even worse is that he feels the need to live such a vapid lifestyle. It's like you're jumping from person after person after person, and you don't even find them attractive half the time. It just seems like a very unfulfilling lifestyle, and I just personally couldn't do it. But I think that when so much emphasis is placed on what you look like and not how you show up in society as a person, it's easy for people to get caught in this cycle of nothingness. Okay, so I think it's time for us to have a chat about Rafael underscore Evora. So a few weeks ago, he came on the timeline and made a post essentially saying, I just wanted a blue-eyed, tattooed white guy in my life. No one ended up asking him about this. There was no build-up, just telling the world, hey, need a white guy. Now, I was reviewing the quotes and comments, and I will say that I saw quite a bit of a mixed reaction to this. Of course, he did get dragged from hell and back, but there was a lot of people encouraging and agreeing with what he was saying. And I kind of want to unpack something. I kept hearing that word preference being thrown around, and I just want to reiterate, you can have your preference as long as you understand that it's rooted in colorism. I feel like so often we throw these words out without understanding their actual meaning. If you're ostracizing an entire group of people from your dating pool, you don't have a preference. A preference would indicate that you are open to a variety of different groups, however, you are drawn to one in particular. Instead, what's happening here, he is saying that if you are not white, I am not interested. And that is an entirely different conversation. A little bit after getting dragged, he comes online to say, after saying in my previous post that I wanted a white guy, I think I'll never talk about this topic here again. So much hate. And the one thing that I can agree on is that there was a lot of hate, a lot of self-hate. You can have your preference, but to come online and advertise yourself specifically to white people is a certain level of depravity that should never be encouraged. I think that regardless of if white men are his type, there should be a certain level of awareness when it comes to posting something to his predominantly black following. And the really funny part about this is not exclusive to Rafael. I've seen so many black people with very large, predominantly black followings coming online, making very bizarre posts centering non-black people. And that's a big part of why I just stopped indiscriminately following people because of how they look. I'm just getting to the point where I won't follow somebody until after I watch their page for a long period of time. Because I ultimately just got tired of blocking people who would just keep coming online pushing this anti-black ideology. So a few weeks have passed and Rafael has gone viral again. The reason for him going viral this time is because he posted a picture of his partner, which lo and behold was white. And it comes to no surprise that the person he ended up with is significantly older, significantly less attractive than he is, and significantly less in shape than he is. And this is going to be a common theme that you're going to see on my YouTube or my Twitter. I made this tweet some time ago saying, it's not a coincidence in almost every one of these unions, the white partner is significantly older and less attractive than the black one. In order to gain proximity to whiteness, the black partner trades their youth and standards in exchange for race. And it still holds true to how I feel today. Most of the time when someone black dates outside their race, they're typically willing to sacrifice a certain level of desirability that they would not ordinarily overlook in their own. Typically, when you're black, you have to be around the same age as your partner, you have to be around the same height, you have to be typically in shape, you have to have decent skin in order for you to even get your foot in the door. However, when you're white, something like being overweight or unattractive is typically not going to be a deal breaker. And this is why I struggle with him categorizing people's justifiable responses as hate. A lot of the times, they will prop these non-black people who are throwbacks of their own community on a pedestal while holding us to unreasonable and unfair expectations. And it's like, no one wants to hear it anymore. If you want to go fuck on some weird older white dude that nobody wants, please go do that on your own time. But don't come online and antagonize and use your following of 20K plus people to push this anti-black messaging. And right now, it just feels like we're stuck in this cycle because for so long, we let this behavior go unchecked And now we find ourselves in a position of facing an onslaught of attacks inside and outside of our community. It's really hard for us to address racism, white supremacy, police brutality, when so many people within our community are committed to upholding these ideologies. The one thing that I can say that's positive about this situation is that Black people do seem to be doing a better job of policing these conversations and correcting these people in real time. We have gotten so complacent when it comes to these topics that it's important now more than ever to be as vigilant as possible. So I think that will do it for this video. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, and comment, and I will be happy to see you in the next one.